Hello, everybody. Welcome to a daily dose of the Bible. Just a little chapter of Genesis for you today. We've been reading through the history of the world, the history of God's interaction with people anyway, according to the Bible, and that begins in Genesis. We're reading about Jacob. He's quite a stinker. I mean, he has deceived his father and his brother, and he is fleeing. Well, I think he's settled down at this point. He's had some kids, but he has made some crappy choices and is yet to have called the Lord his God. He said, surely if all these things come to pass, in the last chapter he had a dream, and he said, surely if all that's true, then yeah, you're the God for me. But he's kind of, I don't know, not yet completely entrusting the Lord. And he's had his first few children, I think 3 or 4. Reuben and Simeon and Levi have been born. Oh, and Judah. So yeah, 4 so far. And those are the beginnings of the tribes, but the rest of them will be coming soon. So we're on chapter 30 here, Genesis 30. And it's talking about Jacob's kids. When Rachel saw that she wasn't having any children for Jacob, she became jealous of her sister, and she pleaded with Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." Jacob became furious with Rachel. "Am I God?" he asked. "He's the one who has kept you from having children." Then Rachel told him, "Take my maid, Bilhah, and sleep with her. She will bear children for me, and through her I can have a family too." So Rachel gave her servant Bilhah to a wife of Jacob, and he slept with her. Bilhah became pregnant and presented him with a son. Rachel named him Dan, for God has vindicated me. He has heard my request to give me a son. Bilhah became pregnant again and gave Jacob a second son. Rachel named him Naphtali, for she said, "I have struggled hard with my sister, and I'm winning." Meanwhile, Leah realized she wasn't getting pregnant anymore, so she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Soon Zilpah presented him a son. Leah named him Gad, for she said, "How fortunate I am." Then Zilpah gave Jacob a second son, and Leah named him Asher, for she said, "What joy is mine! Now the other women will celebrate me." One day during the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandrakes growing in a field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel begged Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But Leah angrily replied, "Wasn't it enough you stole my husband? Now you will steal my son's mandrakes too." Rachel answered, "I will let Jacob sleep with you tonight if you give me some of those mandrakes." So that evening, as Jacob was coming home from the fields, Leah went out to meet him. "You must come and sleep with me tonight," she said. "I'll pay for you with some mandrakes that my son found." So that night he slept with Leah, and God answered Leah's prayers. And she became pregnant again, and she gave him a 5th son for Jacob. She named him Issachar, for she said, "God has rewarded me for giving my servant to my husband as a wife." Then Leah became pregnant again and gave birth to a 6th son for Jacob. She named him Zebulun, for she said, "God has given me a good reward. Now my husband will treat me with respect, for I've given him 6 sons. Later she gave birth to a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel's plight and answered, "Geez, this guy's going to have a lot of kids between the maids and the wives," and answered her prayers by enabling her to have children. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. "God has removed my disgrace," she said, and she named him Joseph, for she said, May the Lord yet add another son to my family." Oh, goodness. I know it's not the way we do things in modern times, and I'm really glad that I don't, have never been tempted for my husband to sleep with my handmaiden to give me a child. But that's, I guess, children were such a sign of wealth increasing, I mean, the more kids you had, the better farm you could work at that time, or, you know, the more shepherds or what have you. But this long line of children is going to turn into the 12 tribes of Israel. So, you know, Jacob had 12 sons, and here they are. And here's how they got there. Some of them were Zilpahs, some of them were Bilhahs, but they were all from Jacob. And I think it's a little strange, you know, that they did kind of the same thing that Sarai did with Hagar. But once again, it must be more of a, if the mistress can't have children, maybe go ahead and have children with the handmaiden. I mean, it's still within his household and all. And they gave their handmaidens as wives to him. So now he has 4 wives, I guess. The next part is going to be about Jacob's wealth increasing. Soon after Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Please release me so I can go home to my own country. Let me take my wives and children, for I have earned them by serving you, and let me be on my way. You certainly know how hard I have worked for you." "Please listen to me," Laban replied. "I have become wealthy, for the Lord has blessed me because of you. Tell me how much I owe you. Whatever it is, I will repay it." Jacob replied, "You know how hard I have worked, and how your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You had little indeed before I came, but your wealth has increased enormously. The Lord has blessed you with everything I've done. But now, what about me? When can I start providing for my own family?" "What wages do you want?" Laban asked again. Jacob replied, "Don't give me anything. Just do this one thing, and I'll continue to tend and watch over your flocks. Let me inspect your flocks today, and remove all the sheep and goats that are speckled and spotted, along with all the black sheep. Give these to me as my wages. In the future, when you check on the animals you have given me as my wages, you'll see that I've been honest. You'll find in my flock any goats without speckles or spots, or any sheep that are not black, you will know that I have stolen from you." "All right," Laban replied, "it will be as you say." But that very day Laban went out and removed the male goats that were streaked and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted or had white patches, and all the black sheep. He placed them in the care of his own sons, who took them a 3 days' journey from where Jacob was. Meanwhile, Jacob stayed and cared for the rest of Laban's flock. Then Jacob took some fresh branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees, and peeled off the strips of the bark, making white streaks on them. Then he placed these peeled branches in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, for that was where they mated. And after they mated, in the front of the white streaked branches, they gave birth to youth that were streaked, speckled, and spotted. Jacob separated those lambs from Laban's flock, and at mating time he turned the flock to face Laban's animals that were streaked. Jacob separated those lambs from Laban's flock, and at mating time he turned the flock to face Laban's animals that were streaked or black. This is how he built his own flock instead of increasing Laban's. Whenever the stronger females were ready to mate, Jacob would place the peeled branches in the watering troughs in front of them. Then they would mate in front of the branches. But he didn't do this with the weaker ones, so the weaker lambs belonged to Laban. The stronger ones were Jacob's. As a result, Jacob became very wealthy, with large flocks of sheep and goats, and male and female servants, and many camels and donkeys. So, someone's trying to trick the trickster. Laban says, "Oh, sure, that's a great deal. What can I give you for all this wonderful things that you've given to me? You know, you've increased my wealth so much. You've been such a blessing to me with you and serving your Lord here. What can I give to you?" Jacob says, "I'll take all the marred animals out of your flock, you know, the speckled and spotted ones, the black sheep, And obviously, I don't know, speckled and spotted goats were not as good for their pelt, I guess. That's all I can figure. Maybe they thought they were weaker somehow or something, but Laban tricks him, takes all the sheep and goats that are speckled and marred and the black sheep, and sends him away, 3 days away, with his own children. Well, then Jacob figures out a way to, this is a very interesting, peeling the bark off of trees. I don't know what that would do at all, but apparently it worked, and he got himself some speckled and spotted and black sheep. So, this is just here he is laboring along with his wives, one of which he fell madly in love with and one of which he had to marry, and then a couple that were given to him by his first and second wife and his many children, and just growing conglomeration right here. He's got a wonderful farm going with lots of sheep and servants and camels and donkeys. So God's doing what he said. He's increasing Jacob's wealth. He's going to take him and make him into the entire land of Israel. So this is the beginning of God's creation of Israel here, through working with Abraham and Isaac, and now here's the third generation, and Jacob's going to be the leader of the Israelites in the very beginning, and the first one to be over the 12 tribes. So I just pray that you'll take this this history of Jacob's life and understand that God can do the same thing for you. He'll take those speckled and spotted sheep or goats, and he'll increase them for you and make them into a blessing rather than what they might seem to you. He was tricked here. That was a cruel thing for Laban to do, and Jacob found a way. The Lord showed him a way to increase his own wealth despite Laban's trickery, and he also ended up leaving Laban with the weaker lambs. So, God's going to find a way for it to work out for you. And it might not make sense. You might not understand how it's going to go. You might see those goats and sheep that you're counting on, and there they go, off into the woods, 3 days away from you, and there's no hope. Well, then you start over. And God's going to give you a new goat. And he's going to take care of whatever it is you need and fulfill all those things. As long as you just give him all the glory and praise for everything that he's done for you, for me, the breath, the shelter. It's uncountable and unmatchable. So just really give thanks to God for what he has planned for all of us.